Greetings, everyone. This is Jed Schlackman. I'm here with you today on this video to speak about the topic of consciousness and how we program or unprogram or reprogram our minds. The work I do in holistic counseling includes a lot of use of hypnosis, meditation, energy psychology, and energy healing modalities. And these particular methods of healing often involve accessing patterns or programs that exist on an unconscious level. To a great extent, the way we live our lives is governed or influenced by programs running on that level of our consciousness. And usually we don't pay much attention to how those programs have been imprinted in our consciousness, how we have come to believe or value particular things. This process of collecting different beliefs or programs in our consciousness is ongoing. So our consciousness or our mind is never set in stone. It's always evolving or transforming to some extent. When we're born, we are born into a family which has its beliefs and values and programs that are running in that family, which are presented to us either directly or indirectly, and to some extent we tend to absorb those ideas, those patterns and beliefs that are present within our family. As we begin to grow older and have other types of social interactions and other environments are influencing us, there are many different potential sources of programming that we're exposed to. This includes our peers, other children, it includes our school, our teachers, it includes religions, political organizations, clubs or groups that we're a member of, the media, television, internet, radio, music, all those things, especially in the modern era, are very significant factors in what we take into our consciousness and what we choose or begin to accept as valid or important for us. If we look at our lives and if we look at the world around us, we may notice that a lot of the programs that are running are not for our best interest. In fact, a lot of what's programmed into us, whether it's from our family, our culture, our peers, our media, etc., is there to help us conform to someone else's idea of what's valid or what's valuable in one's life. If we want to become more conscious, more evolved beings, we need to become more deliberate creators of our reality. So we need to more consciously determine what is valuable, what is important. So if we're on this journey of personal development, we start questioning things. We may question what our parents taught us, what our schools taught us, what the media is showing us, what religions are teaching, what political philosophies are presenting. And the more we start to question those external influences, the more we realize that we need to shift many of our own beliefs that we've picked up from those sources without properly questioning or filtering them in the first place. If any one of you start to look at the things that are taught to society, any major belief systems, you'll start to find that many things are based on false assumptions or intentionally false information that's being presented to the public. This includes things about our history as a country, as a species, the history of our planet. It includes things about health and health care, how we treat our bodies and how we address illnesses that we have. That's one area where we can see that there's a dominant paradigm and establishment, but then there are other alternative and complementary approaches that people are usually not taught about, even though many of them have been used for thousands of years with great success. Spirituality and religion is another area where much of what the public is presented with is in some way false or misleading. In that realm, there are many people who have had their own direct spiritual experiences, things such as out-of-body travel, astral projection, near-death experiences, past life memories, mediumship, channeling. So many of these phenomena that involve people personally interacting with a spiritual or non-physical realm. And people who have those experiences often discover that what they experience themselves contradicts what their religion or what the society around them typically teaches about those matters. We also have what we refer to as science. Now, if we look at what science really is, or what the philosophy of science is about, it's a process of seeking greater knowledge and understanding. So there's the scientific method, which is meant to help us observe phenomena around us, to form and test out different hypotheses. So it's never a finite process. There's always the possibility of gathering additional information, of gaining additional knowledge, of revising what we may have previously thought or believed was true. However, nowadays we often see the science fields presenting a consensus, what they call their scientific consensus. And so it's believed that if the vast majority of scientists in a particular subject area all agree on something, that that must be true and valid. Yet historically we can see that that's not the case at all. Often scientists come to a conclusion about something, but then later on it's proven that that theory or belief is not an accurate reflection of reality. Another issue with science is that it focuses on things that can be empirically examined on the 5 sense level of reality. That tends to present a challenge if you're looking at something that involves metaphysical or spiritual realities. From a metaphysical perspective, there may not be any objective reality. Also, from that perspective, the physical reality that we think we perceive may be some form of projection or illusion, and even many physicists now believe that the universe is a holographic phenomenon. So if we're observing things within that illusory projection and believing that that's the fundamental reality, we're starting out with a false assumption. If you start out with a false assumption, that's going to lead you to form false or inaccurate conclusions. And this is something very common in the scientific fields, where people begin their investigation into things with certain assumptions, and they don't question those assumptions. They just assume that since everyone seems to believe that, it must somehow be true. We find more and more that when we look at the basis of those assumptions, there's really nothing solid for them to stand on. So the assumption that physical matter, that our biological form is the source of consciousness or intelligence, would be one type of assumption that you'll see many scientists making. particularly in the fields of medicine, neuroscience, things of that nature. Yet there's plenty of evidence, plenty of phenomena that pretty strongly refute the idea that matter is the basis of reality. The evidence points to the opposite direction of causality or creation, where we have consciousness, the spiritual intelligence being the source of what's bringing what we perceive as physical matter into existence. There's the idea of vibration, of energy. So when we see physical matter, we're seeing it appearing as solid particles, but that's an illusion. Physicists have been talking for many decades about the idea of frequencies and waveforms, and those being a more fundamental level of reality than solid matter. So solid matter appears to be solid, but that's just an illusion that our five senses are feeding to us. Everything is vibrating, everything is in motion. Everything, in that sense, is energy, going from the densest level, the physical matter, to the least dense level, the spiritual realms, where things are vibrating at a rate beyond what our physical senses or scientific devices can measure. Frequency and wavelength don't have an end point to them, so theoretically they could go up to an infinite level. You could have an infinite vibration in terms of frequency and wavelength. So if we can only perceive frequencies within a certain range, we have to consider the possibility that there's a vast amount of frequencies beyond that range that we're not perceiving, but they do exist. So that reality is there even though we're not perceiving it. And the physical reality would just be a subset of that larger, greater reality, and that greater reality is the source and a great influence upon what's happening here in this physical reality that we think is the reality. This is a topic that is rarely discussed in our educational system. In the educational system in most countries and most cultures, there are certain things that children are taught which are believed to be important for people to function and conform in that society. So if the people who are leaders, the ones who are in some sense in charge of that society, want to keep the people in their place in some manner, whether there's a cultural caste system or some other hierarchy of power in that society, what they tend to do is teach certain things to the masses, to the general public in that particular society, while teaching a more expanded level of information to people who are chosen to be the leaders or rulers in that society. This is something that goes on in pretty much every culture to some extent, so we can't single out any particular country. We can't say it only happens in our modern society. This has been going on throughout history. There's also the consideration of beings from beyond this planet, from beyond Earth, interacting with Earth. There's an extraordinarily large amount of information from government documents, from personal testimonies, from artifacts that exist that demonstrate that our planet is not alone in terms of intelligent life in this galaxy or this universe, that there are beings from other star systems who have often been interacting with Earth and in some way shaping or influencing the development of life on this planet and the development of human civilizations. Yet we don't hear that from official government sources. It's just something that is leaked out by various whistleblowers through various researchers who are not accepting the official line on that topic. So if we're not being told the truth about that topic, we're not being told the truth about the history of our planet, we're not being told the truth about all the options we have for healing, for dealing with medical issues, we're not being given an accurate story about the nature of reality itself, about spiritual phenomena, about who we are as souls or spiritual beings that transcends this limited human identity, this particular personality and roles that we're playing here, that suggests that there are many things we might want to question about our beliefs. Once we go through this process of questioning things, we start to realize that we are much more powerful and capable beings than we have been previously told. As spiritual beings that are part of this divine intelligence, we are, in a sense, co-creators of reality. If we accept that, if we really deeply acknowledge and believe it, that gives us more power to shape our reality, to choose our own values, our own beliefs, to more intentionally create our life experience. It also can help us have more compassion and understanding for others, for we can see that we're going through this process of awakening or reawakening to our truer self. We've chosen to incarnate as human beings with limited awareness and go through this developmental process. And everyone else around us is on some point in their journey as well. Everyone has this opportunity to break free of programming and expand their consciousness, expand their personal potential, their experience of reality. In different points in time in our life, we may observe how we make a shift in who we perceive ourselves to be. If you look at your child self, the perspective of that child self is much different than the perspective of the teenager self, perhaps. And your adolescent self doesn't have the same perspective that your adult self would have, say, in your 20s or 30s. And in later life, perhaps when you're in your 60s or 70s, and you reflect on who you are and the life that you've been living, you have a different perspective than you did 20 or 30 years earlier. As our experiences, as the ideas and information that we're able to access continue to expand, we are not the same person that we were. So, in one sense, our identity is never identical from one moment to another, because we've always had additional experience, and additional experience in some way fosters the evolution of our consciousness. With that awareness, we can release the past. We can let go of any regrets, of any shame, doubt, guilt, anything that we're experiencing about who we were and what we did in the past. That past identity is not who we are. We have a memory of it. We have some continuity of that self, that personality identity, but it's truly not the same person. It's not really wise to continue to attach to the identity of your past self. If we take that idea even further, if you consider the idea of reincarnation in multiple lifetimes, what good would it do you to still believe that you are the same person you were in a past life? That identity is not that valid for you to continue with in your present life. It wouldn't help your functioning. So we want to leave ourselves open to continue to grow and expand, and to focus on who we wish to be in the present and what we desire to become as we go forward on our life path. This is something that allows us a greater sense of freedom. If we had to constantly think about our past, what we've done, who we've been before, if we did all that, we wouldn't have the ability to be fully present in the now, to have our energy directed at creating what we desire to in the present. So if you still believe that you're the same person you were a day ago, a month ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, and so on, you're truly limiting yourself. You're keeping yourself stuck to some extent. It's been said that the only thing that's inevitable or permanent is change. We're always changing. We're never completely static. So if we realize that, we can see that we don't need to hold on to who we've been. We can let ourselves continue to grow and evolve, and also be open to the flow of life itself, to let creation unfold, and to release any resistance that we may be carrying toward that. Life is going to continue to move and flow, whether we wish to accept that or not. So being able to accept that allows us to be more in harmony with that process of creation, with the larger creation unfolding. We can be harmonized with it rather than in resistance to it. And if we choose to look at everything in life occurring to support our evolution, then we can find the positive, the beneficial aspect of whatever may be occurring in our life. Many of the challenges that people face in life, a lot of the suffering that's created, is a result of people not accepting that, of people judging, condemning themselves and others, and people seeing things as unfair or unjust, rather than seeing things as an opportunity for learning, an opportunity to continue to grow and to express their greatest potential. For those watching this presentation, I invite each of you to really take time to meditate, to let your conscious mind relax, to release all your daily concerns for at least a portion of time, so that you can begin to reflect on things such as the nature of your identity, the beliefs and values that you hold to reflect on how things in the outside world have influenced you to become the person that you are, and to consider if that is for your highest good or not, if it would be helpful for you to look at things in different ways, to consider that there are greater truths than the ones that you've learned or been told, to consider that some of the things that we've been taught are not at all accurate, that they may serve some other purpose to keep us restricted or confined in some manner, whether physically or psychologically. I'd like to thank you for taking the time, taking this brief, very brief portion of your existence to view this presentation, to consider these ideas, to commit to your own personal growth and development. So I salute each of you for that. Namaste.